Story 1. A lot of comments in this thread mention pizza parties, and I agree. My current supervisor will sometimes come to work for an hour, and then send a message to the team saying, "Hey, I'm hungry. Does anyone want something to eat from the deli? My treat." We send in our orders, and he goes to get the food and delivers it to our desks. This has a much bigger impact on morale than you might think. Story 2. Saying that work is like family is often used to create a sense of obligation. This assumes that people have positive associations with their families. Story 3. I worked for a company in Australia where morale was already low among the workforce. At our Christmas lunch, the company's French chief executive officer gave a speech in which he tried to be humorous about spending his Christmas holiday in the freezing Swiss Alps, while we enjoyed a beautiful Australian summer. There were about 100 workers at that lunch, and you could almost hear everyone collectively thinking, "Are you serious?" Story 4. My boss loved to take the team out for drinks or some sort of company-friendly event like bowling or mini-golf. He thought it made us more cohesive. In reality, every conversation before and after the event was, "Why is he spending money on this when we have needed the printer fixed for 6 weeks?" Story 5. Celebrate at a staff meeting when a salesperson reaches $1 million in sales. However, the salesperson does not receive a commission on sales. The manager receives bonuses based on sales. Story 6. The company is reporting record profits. Manager. There is no room in the budget for raises, and the open position will be filled by an outside hire instead of promoting someone internally. However, here is a pizza party, and please fill out this required anonymous survey. Story 7. It had never happened to me until this month. Bringing in an outsider who knows nothing about our business, industry, or how any of us do our work to make things more efficient. It is a total buzzkill, and half the staff is walking on eggshells. I am an extremely passive and laid-back person, but somehow I ended up in a meeting with human resources because of an incident with this individual last week. Never in my nearly 4 decades of working have I ever been called into human resources. I strongly dislike this person. Story 8. This constant push to strive even higher no matter how exceptional the current work is. At my first job, I worked with a man who was the absolute ideal employee for a low-quality fast food restaurant. Customer service was always outstanding, talkative, cheerful, excellent at everything, kind, and never showed any sign of weakness or hesitation in his demeanor. It was remarkable, and everyone both at the store and customers loved him. He was very deservedly promoted to shift lead, where he continued to improve team morale, store quality, work quality, and more. Shifts felt much better with him leading. Employees were happier, and we were breaking output records nearly every day. One day, we shattered an exceptional record, and after the lunch rush, everyone was cheering for each other, especially for him because we knew he was responsible for our success. The head manager then came downstairs from the office, where he had been sitting for the entire lunch rush instead of helping, holding a sheet of numbers. The model employee, beaming with smiles, said, "We did great, right?" The manager responded, "I know you can do better than that. Let's go for a higher number tomorrow," with a back pat before walking off. That moment was the first time I ever saw this man's perfect demeanor falter, and his energy was low for the rest of the shift. Everyone could see it, felt bad, and tried to cheer him up, but the damage was done because the person with the most authority to appraise and acknowledge his hard work still felt it was not enough. Do not ever be that person. Story 9. Come up with the idea of a nomination poll for Employee of the Month. No, thank you. It is highly facetious. Story 10. Hire from outside only if there are no qualified people who can be promoted from within. The idea of a different perspective is often overstated. Story 11. Announcing how well the company is doing but never sharing any of that success with your employees. Story 12. When they say things like time to shift into overdrive or similar, we are so understaffed that we are basically at the gearbox has exploded and lies in the driveway in a pool of its own oil stage. There are no more gears. Story 13. Setting unrealistic goals. They think we are going to aim for the moon, but it is not motivating if there is no realistic chance to meet the metrics. I am not working extra hard to stroke your ego. Story 14. hitting milestones but complaining about minor issues that do not matter as much. At my job, we have done well in the last 2 months and have not only met but exceeded the budget. My supervisor says we have done well, but we need to work on other performance metrics. The frustrating part is that those metrics exist to meet the budget. However, those metrics do not guarantee success. One of the key metrics is line item count. I asked my supervisor if he would prefer I make less money per ticket provided I have more items sold per ticket. For example, a $300 ticket with 1 item is considered worse than a $250 ticket with 2 or more items. He said yes. He obviously preferred a 2-line ticket worth $300. I made him choose which was better. I can have one or the other, and he said the lower ticket with more items is better. Interestingly, in the months we have missed the budget, our other metrics are good. But in the 2 or 3 months we hit the budget, those metrics are poor. It is frustrating, and no one realizes those metrics do not actually matter. Story 15. Inexpensive appreciation gifts that nobody wants or needs are a waste of money. It would be better to spend that money on fixing the issues we have been requesting to be addressed for years. That would actually improve the job and make the workers much happier. Does anyone else feel the same way? Story 16. Starts a meeting with, "Good morning. I can't hear you." It was a good morning until I was forced to do something I did not want to. Story 17. Almost any events outside of work or at work meant to be a reward or fun gathering for employees, such as potlucks during work, socials after work, and team-building escape rooms, only make me anxious. Please give me time off instead. Story 18. I had a boss who kept talking about how many years he worked at the bottom of the ladder before getting promoted to management. Please stop telling your employees how much longer they will earn low wages. You are not empathizing, you are demoralizing. Story 19. The new manager at my old job came in and asked me for help on how to strongly criticize the staff because he wanted to inspire them to work hard. He had to ask me because he was so new that he did not know what the staff I managed did. Story 20. Morale event is inevitably some sports activity. Most of the men may enjoy go-karting, whirlyball, soccer, or similar activities. The women who have to show up in heels and makeup enjoy that much less. I never got as much of a morale boost as when I scheduled a morale event and said, "Or you can take the day off." Story 21. We have a meeting to establish reporting standards, and then next week another meeting that establishes a standard exactly opposite to what we discussed last time. Story 22. When they try to intimidate their workers, I have worked for many people like this. As soon as you demonstrate to them that they cannot intimidate you, they look for reasons to let you go. Story 23. I find that townhouse questions and answers are just pre-scripted propaganda, and any legitimate question included is usually deflected. Story 24. I worked in a manufacturing plant that had enclosed workrooms within the building. Therefore, there were windows that looked from the hallway into the room where we all worked. My supervisor would stand outside the window, glaring at you while you worked. You could not talk to him as he was separated by a thick frame of glass. He would just watch you. He also used to climb onto the maintenance catwalks that ran along the span of the room above us, so he would literally be looking down on us. He was unusual, and out of the 4 crews, his always had the highest turnover of employees. Story 25. Refused to pick up slack. I work in healthcare. When we are extremely short-staffed, managers and charge nurses have active licenses too, so they should take patient load, but most do not. I do not need motivational pep talks. Take some patience. Story 26. Try to give your company a speech about loving where you are in life and striving to do better, even when it is difficult, all while working a job that is indeed the challenging part. I submitted my 2 weeks' notice that day. It was very much appreciated. They responded by firing me, saying, "We do not do that here, so just go ahead and grab your things, and I will walk you out." I celebrated my freedom for the next few weeks until I started at my new job. Story 27. I remember. This was almost 2 decades ago. London was having one of its regular train strikes, and it was going to chaos. A colleague and I were told by our operations director that we would be allowed to leave an hour early, presented as if he was doing a massive favor. This was a job that could be done remotely. Without any mutual discussion, we immediately said no thanks. We would take a day of leave, which we did. The next time a strike happened, it was okay if we worked from home. Story 28. The pizza parties and team-building luncheons, no thanks. I would prefer a raise instead of a greasy meal that I often had to pay for. Meetings for something that could have easily been described in one simple email. Taking verbal criticism for not wanting to participate in that culture. That's long in my past, but it was infuriating. Story 29. Pizza parties or paying for a dinner. I'm just like, wow, what a paltry consolation prize. This is definitely not as nice as receiving a raise or real healthcare coverage. Story 30. Talk about team spirit or being a team player. A good manager will foster it without needing to mention it. Story 31. My wife's company recently implemented a 3-day return to office policy after years of 1 day per week for everyone within 90 minutes of the office. No reasoning was given. Productivity is already down. She and many of her coworkers now have grueling new commutes after planning their lives based on the flexibility they had for years. There are many suspicions, which I believe are correct, that the company is trying to reduce the workforce without having to do firings. It is a poorly kept secret that the chief executive officer is trying to retire soon and wants to go out on a high note, but it is not looking good due to the economic impacts of the current president. A few weeks ago, directors planned a pizza party in an attempt to lift morale. Planned is in quotes because a few of my wife's direct reports, among others, were required to be in the office despite some of them being fully remote employees since they're hiring who live more than 3 hours away in other states. There was also a dispute because these directors only bought pizzas, too much pizza, but no other snacks or beverages. They became defensive and unpleasant when asked why there was nothing to drink. One of them said, "It is not our job and would add cost. Just go buy something from the vending machines." So basically, exactly as described, do not have the party if you are going to call it something it is not and require some people to drive 6 hours for literally nothing except a couple slices of pizza. Story 32. The thing I have seen firsthand was a manager who tried to motivate people with $5 gift cards or even $20 gift cards. Everyone found it patronizing, and I have never seen a group lose motivation so quickly. Story 33. When they compare earnings to the previous year, they believe saying "we can do better" will motivate people. Story 34. Organizing a team-building event on a Friday evening, outside of work hours. I refused to attend. It did not go down well. Story 35. Pizza parties or discussions about how well the company is doing are almost always followed by being told that the best they can offer is a minimum raise. Story 36. Any sort of mandatory fun time activity. We have an annual picnic at our workplace, and this year I took a vacation day to stay home because I dislike it so much. Story 37. Write-ups for poor performance kill my motivation and make me want to give up and look for another job. Story 38. Suggest a leave of absence. Unless you can grant a leave of absence for 3.5 years, this will take a long time. Story 39. During training, we were required to watch Al Pacino's monologue from Any Given Sunday. It was seasonal work at a Best Buy. Story 40. We had pizza day at work last Friday. We got to have 2 slices of Papa John's pizza during a team meeting that ran half an hour past quitting time. Story 41. Sitting in an acting manager position during a hiring freeze, so he is still my peer, and trying to force everyone to document how they do everything on his personally controlled spreadsheet. I call it his micromanagement roadmap. Add to that periodic status update meetings that turn into rambling struggle sessions lasting over an hour. Story 42. I had a boss punch me in the arm once. I gathered the gesture was supposed to be endearing, like something a big brother would do. It was kind of a go get them tiger moment, but it really hurt. When I flinched and rubbed my arm, he looked at me like, "What? You can't even take a punch." When I quit a few days later, he started calling me lazy and said I apparently can't handle a little hard work. I can only guess what kind of misinformation he spread about me to the staff after I was gone. But when people asked me, I told them, I am a domestic abuse survivor. I do not want to deal with that at work, too. Story 43. Layoffs. We need to do more with less. Management has assured us this is not the last round, so everyone must demonstrate how to justify their high salaries. Fortunately, everyone will be more productive using the mandatory new artificial intelligence tools. John, you are taking over Carrie and Bob's responsibilities for the meantime. Bethany, you now own the legacy billing system the Detroit team was managing. Story 44. Yelling and not listening. This does not refer to a direct supervisor but to site supervisors, customers, and others. Most of these individuals, 98% are men, think, if I yell at this person, they will work faster. Faster does not mean better. Nobody is working slowly, just waiting to be yelled at to reach their full potential. When complications or delays arise and you explain why or what is needed to complete the task, yelling will not fix anything. In reality, you might think this person is being difficult and start ignoring their calls and emails. The work will get done when it gets done. The people you work hardest for are the ones you like. Story 45. Trying to use fun team-building activities, pizza parties, and boardroom snacks as a substitute for appropriate financial compensation. A decent work environment, a reasonable workload, and sufficient time off is ineffective. A free Danish or pizza slice in a healthy workplace is a nice extra. A delicious treat. A free Danish or pizza slice in a place where certain staff run roughshod over the rest and the company is losing money due to pay rises that do not keep pace with inflation indicates poor management. My boss thinks I am an idiot who cannot do basic math and will be distracted and placated by greasy cheese bread. Story 46. When we meet anyone at a convention or a new formal business meeting, they often make sure to say, I am blank's boss, especially when you are excelling and everyone is impressed with your ideas. Saying, I am blank's boss just radiates confidence. I am not a terrible boss. We work together and collaborate. Story 47. Food parties feature favorite foods. I don't eat pork. My last boss loved hot dogs, so we always had hot dogs for holidays and company events. Story 48. There is a system in a few places where you receive positive marks for doing good things and negative marks for mistakes. It is similar to a school grading system. The idea is that positive marks for hard work or creative thinking are motivational because more positive marks lead to rewards such as a larger annual bonus. However, due to the nature of the work, it is very easy to make simple mistakes, and sometimes positive marks are given circumstantially for good actions. Negative marks also reduce the annual bonus. This system is very demotivating, especially when negative marks result from mistakes rather than neglect. It creates a workplace culture where everyone is overly cautious to avoid mistakes, causing motivation, confidence, and morale to decline. Story 49. Do not reward employees for over 20 years of employment unless it is a substantial amount of money. Otherwise, it reflects poorly on the organization. Thanks a bunch for sticking around till the end of the video. Remember to subscribe, and until next time, stay awesome and goodbye.